Everyone. I'm Peter Stanton, publisher of the Worcester Business Journal, and we're happy to have you joining us for this special Small Business Strategies webinar. In this session, we're going to explore a variety of key issues facing small business owners and share the insights and strategies that can help you overcome a variety of challenges and find the formula for sustainable growth and success. Our panel of small business owners and service professionals will highlight their experiences, best practices, and how we can help support and how they can help support your small business or startup. This session is being brought to you by the support of our Webcast sponsor, Webster 5. The bank has been a longtime supporter and partner to many small business owners in our region, and we thank them for their commitment to the small business community and to providing valuable programs like this one. Here to say a few words on behalf of the bank is Robert Totaro, Vice President and Business Loan Officer at Webster 5. Robert.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning, everyone. Webster 5 is thrilled to be a sponsor of this small business panel discussion. Webster 5 has been in the Worcester County area for more than 155 years, and we are truly committed to the small business and local businesses in our community, as well as the local nonprofits. Webster 5 in 2022 received a CRA rating of outstanding, which only 13% of mass banks can say. So that shows you where our focus is, and our focus is on those local businesses that are in our community. Our financial expertise and personal service coupled with our fiscal strength allow us to truly be a resource for our small businesses. And that's really what we seek to do at Webster 5. We really do seek the ability to really be there for this, to be a resource for those that have questions. And we thank you for allowing us to be a sponsor here today and look forward to this discussion.
Thanks, Robert, and thank you, Webster 5. So just before we meet the panel, a couple of quick notes. Number one, if you have a question, you can type it into the Q&A box, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can. Today's webcast is also being recorded, so a link to the recording will be sent to you after the event. So in case you missed something or had to go to the bathroom and some phenomenal conversation was going on, you can go back and find all those magical words. You won't lose any wisdom with the recording. So to get started, I'm going to introduce our moderator and also our panelist, and then I'm going to hand things over to Bob. Our moderator today is Bob Spellane. In June, Bob was appointed Interim-Regional Director of the Central-Regional Small Business Development Center, the SBDC as we know it, over at Clark University. Terrific organization. Their mission is to educate and empower their clients so they can build profitable businesses. For over 40 years, the Central Region office has been working with business owners in over 90 communities here in Central Mass. The office provides one-on-one, free, comprehensive, and confidential services focusing on business growth and strategies, financing, loan assistance, as well as strategic marketing and operational analysis. These services may be included in business plans, marketing plans, financial, cash flow, other areas of critical success for any venture. So in fiscal year 23, they've worked with over 800 entrepreneurs and have been responsible for assisting over 90 new business startups. So yay, SBDC. And Bob, thanks for joining us as our moderator. Our panelists are Aaron Burt, who is the CEO of Solvis Global. In his bio, Aaron states that he's an entrepreneur finding his way as an executive leader. Well, I think he's finding his way just fine. At Solvis, Aaron focuses on key partnerships and growth areas, but is particularly focused on crafting the unique business model that Solvis has evolved towards, a home for creative thinkers, tinkerers, and doers who want to drive technology to its fullest potential and want to see the reward for their hard work that they put in to make it happen. Thank you, Aaron. Liz Cheney is the owner and chief local officer of Maker to Maine, a locally curated market with a brand new location on Harding Street in Worcester. The market specializes in providing products crafted by local makers, brewers, and farmers within New England. It also now features a deli and kitchen with prepared foods and more, which I'm sure Lynn will tell us all about. Ron Waddell. Ronald Waddell is the founder and CEO of Legendary Legacies, an entrepreneurial nonprofit which offers young men the opportunity to develop, the skills necessary to become productive citizens and maximize their God-given potential by providing positive male adult role models through programming efforts. And we also have Robert Totoro joining the panel. And Rob, I know you just heard from him earlier. He's been with Webster 5 for 17 years and brings a deep understanding of business lending, along with his overall banking experience. Rob excels at structuring and closing commercial loans of all sizes for the bank's business customers, and he's skilled at developing long-term partnerships through his service-minded approach. So thank you all for joining us, and I'm handing it over to Bob Spellane to take it from there.
Excellent, John. Peter, as always, and thank you. It's great to be with the host of those folks that are joining us on the panel this morning. I'm honored to be representing the SBDC Central Region and the work that we do. As Peter pointed out, we've worked with over 800 clients over the past year and have been responsible for over 90 business startups. And I'm very proud of the work that our office does, and candidly, the students here at Clark University and how they work with entrepreneurs and emerging businesses to get them some of the resources that they need. Well, today it's about those folks that are on the panel, and I want to start with some questioning that I hope will be valuable to all of us, so we can have a real vibrant conversation over the next hour. Lynn, you're in a perfect location on my screen, so let me start with you. You've just relocated your business. I've been fortunate enough to be down there a few times and partake in some of those provisions that you're selling. First of all, congratulations. Tell us a little bit about that process, the process that led to this decision from your standpoint, and how this change, how this pivotal moment you believe will ultimately lead to greater success for your business.
Sure. So my business, Maker Domain, has evolved numerous times, initially starting as Let Us Be Local Food Hub 12 years ago, launched to pick up food directly from local farms and deliver it to restaurants, breweries, farm-to-farm aggregation, and small stores. And then I thought, what easier way to make local food accessible to everybody by opening a retail location? Mind you, I thought that was the easiest way. Regardless, I opened that location and evolved to Maker Domain. I opened in 2020, just 3 weeks before the pandemic shut down. And I opened on Main Street, just across from Mechanics Hall. And we were just kind of a small corner market at the time. 3 long years uphill, essentially, as a result of multitude of different reasons as to why, predominantly directed at the pandemic aftermath and what we went through during that experience. To open a new business during that point was not a lovely experience by any sense of the matter. So I made the difficult decision in March of this year to close that location and move to my new location in Harding Street. We're just tucked behind the Queen's Cups and Lock 50, and across the street from Maine Hair Salon, and in the old Harding Glass location. 3 times the space, with parking, so people can actually grocery shop. There's a huge parking lot that wraps our entire space. Still committed to supporting 175 local farms and makers, but now we have a full kitchen to expand our offerings, prepared foods, a full deli. We make everything in-house. So all of these decisions did not come easily, just as it is to start any business, and constantly pivoting and changing has never been more challenging in my entire life than it has been in the last 6 to 8 months of building out a brand new location itself.
Pretty interesting. And we may have some Patriots fans on this call right now, perhaps on the panel. It's easy to say that games have been a little disappointing, but to lift up those spirits on Sunday afternoon, Lynn, you guys have launched a new product this past weekend. You want to tell all of the folks who could come down to that location, park in that big parking lot? And
Sure. So we opened exactly 6 months from the day that we closed. We opened on September 22nd with a soft opening, and launched some prepared food items. So you can come in and grab some sandwiches to go. You can grab some different items for food and for dinner and so forth to reheat. But Billy, my other half, who's the chef and culinary consultant for my program, is I asked him, I said, "Hey, do you think that we should do wings? Because like you and I eat wings on for Monday nights and watch football. So we've now launched wings every Sunday and Monday specifically for football. So yeah,
Excellent.
that's been a pretty awesome experience. And they literally just came out of the oven when you left the other day.
Okay. Well, we have incentive to go back, and needless to say, I could have left in the middle of the Patriots game the other day and come down and grab them. So that's on me. That's on me. So thanks, Lynn, for getting us started. I want to shift over to Ron and Aaron. Ron, you launched, I believe, 2018. Aaron, you guys have been in existence a little pre because of some of the work and how you got started, but 2017. Can you point to, can either of you, why don't we go with Aaron first, but can either of you point to a turning point or a pivotal moment in your business, in your young business history, like Lynn, that has been valuable to you, was really critical in your current success?
Yeah, I think Lynn said it perfectly,
Aaron, you
right?
just gave me the look. You just gave me that look like I've got 10 of them, Bob.
I do. It's picking one is the hard one. And
right.
my co-founder, Ron Appelian, is known for frequently saying life is a series of interruptions interrupted by interruptions, and businesses are just a series of pivots interrupted by more pivots. So probably, honestly, the biggest early shift for us was actually going from a consulting business model to a venture studio business model. And that's where we are today. And that was a realization on the part of kind of our internal team that we wanted to solve big problems, and we wanted to be the ones who were responsible for delivering the solution. So a lot of times with especially kind of deep tech companies, which is kind of the category that we fall into, you come up with a technology, you license it to a company, or you try to market just that technology. And we wanted to change the approach to that. We really wanted to focus on not just the technology, but the end solution, which is a combination of the technology, the business, and the people that are all tied in there. And so that was the first really big pivot that we had in our organization. And like I said, there's at least 20 more, but I'll kick it over to Ron because he's got some really cool ones too.
Oh, thanks, Aaron. Good to be on the panel. For us, I have the same thing, man. Many pivots and changes, but the one that stuck out for me would be when we received a state grant. Initially, we started, there were three of us, my co-founder and I, and we had a subcontractor. So it was a real kind of tight-knit group. And then we received a large grant with help of Open Sky, which was about $500,000 a year over 3 years. And so that need to grow and expand and bring new people into the fold was a whole new space for us to step into. All of our ideas and thoughts were really amongst that triad of us. And so as we brought new people in, we really didn't have an onboarding process. We didn't have any way to bring people in to understand where our method was and what we were going to do. And so initially it was a little difficult, but we were able to partner with a number of different community folks to support us in coming up with strategic plans and theories of change, and then a consultant to help us. And we continue to work on our personal development plan and our process improvements. But up until that point, we really didn't have any of that. It's just like all in our heads. And so as people came on, it was like, why don't you know what we're trying to do? And so really needing to develop and implement that was something that was a huge shift for us, and it really has helped us grow to be where we are now.
Bob, could I add one more item there? Because we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the pivot associated with that giant thing called COVID. And especially with all the fun discussion and challenges around in-office work, at-home work, or what does hybrid look like? I just wanted to share, when we went through this, so we were lucky enough to be considered essential because of some of the work that we do with the Department of Defense. But for us, we were still really careful with how we brought people into the office, where we kind of kept people to protect everybody as best we could. And where we evolved to, and it's a really big shift for an organization like ours that's very manufacturing focused. So we need to be in the building to make things. But we came up with what I think is a pretty good approach around hybrid work. And it is truly go where you need to be to get your work done. So there's times where it makes sense to work remote. There's times where it makes sense to work in the office. And as we continue to evolve this kind of whole process across the globe, I think it's important to figure out how we trust our employees, how we trust our team members, so that we can go in that direction, because there's too much angst and politicization of where I'm working right now across the board. And so, it comes down to trust. And so that was one big pivot for us in early COVID, was figuring out, yeah, we could trust our team. We could make that leap of faith. And I think that's an important one for an organization like ours, where it impacts the culture because of that. And so it's a really cool evolution. And I'm sure everybody has their story associated with that. But I wanted to get that out there because it's coming up more and more frequently.
Actually, a really good point. And while we're there, any reaction or response to that from your operations? Lynn, clearly retail business a little different than what Aaron's described. How about you, Ron, relative to delivery of services and fulfilling your mission? And even Rob Tataro, if you want to jump in from a banker's standpoint and a lender's standpoint, serving clients that you referenced at the start of this conversation. Love to have your thoughts and ideas on that. I think it's something people are struggling with on a day-to-day basis.
I'm happy to take a
Great.
jump on that. I would say initially in the food service industry in general has been forever changed because of the pandemic itself. How we dine out, how we do takeout, how we order groceries, all of those things are associated. And now with my new location, I'm looking at all of those components, right? Dining, take food to go, and the grocery side of it. The experience of obviously being an essential situation, but doing it 3 weeks after we opened and then finding out I no longer had any staff and it was just myself, and hired on a chef who I've known for years that was unemployed now at this point. And I said, great, I need help packing these to-go orders. So please come and join me. And it was certainly I don't wish that experience on anybody. It was a really, really trying emotionally and physically, mentally, all the things. It was a really, really terrible experience, as with most people's experience through that very traumatic pandemic in of itself. But I would say, like any experience in your life, when there's something bad that you're faced with, some sort of adversity, there is always something to learn from that. There's always something to grow from that experience. And I think ultimately looking at how I've relocated my business to an area that has more parking, more walkability, and some and accessibility for a neighborhood that's growing, but also on the fact of still providing things that are convenience for people. As much as I continue to force and try and push the aspect that, no, you should only eat what's local and in season at a certain time, I'm no longer naive to know that that is not going to happen. So as a result, I need to become a more robust grocery experience for people of all walks of life, of all demographics, of all aspects within and as residents and commuters within the city itself. So you really have to hone in on your customer base, and then adapt and pivot, as we all like to say, to exactly what their expectations are. And of course, you can't meet everybody's expectations, but if it's a big part of your business model, you better be prepared to move and adapt to what your customers want from you.
Excellent. Rob?
I can jump in on that as well. There's a quote by Marcus Aurelius that says that what impedes the action advances the action. And so for us, COVID was something that in our early stages really allowed us to recognize in the work we do, which is human services, that we needed to stay in person. That actually kind of accelerated our growth in a way, because larger organizations weren't as nimble and needed to go remote. And so we were able to continue to develop those relationships and build with our constituency and our participants. The other thing that it helped me learn, though, was just how dedicated my staff was to this work. And so coming through that, what I looked at within our organization is how do we cultivate, as Aaron alluded to, a culture. I'm big on that cultural Trump strategy any day. We need strategy, but culture is what's going to really push things forward. And so in that, really cultivating a space in which we went to a 4-day work week. We have mental health Mondays. I know my staff are taking calls on Sundays and Saturdays when they tell me they're not. And so a way to support them, and I have many single parents that are going through those types of things. And then we implemented a quarterly spa day. So once a quarter, we cover a spa treatment for our staff members to go and get a massage. as a way to support them in all their efforts in what they're doing. But it was the overall pressure and tension of COVID and their willingness to stay engaged during all that that pointed to me how dedicated they were, and then what could we do as an organization to support their dedication and show that we were committed to them as well.
Excellent.
And I can just jump in and say from sort of the financing side of the world, I've had many conversations with business owners, and I would say it's probably safe to say that there's times where when you're looking to make a change to your business or expand or do something different, there is the times where it involves financing. So when you are having these thoughts, if you have a loan officer that you already deal with, or if you don't, I would encourage you to reach out to your bank or reach out to me and kind of run the situation by your loan officer and see what the options are for you for financing. And a lot of times I find that having the conversation, just the conversation with the business owner does generate. Obviously, the bank has questions because of the way you look at things. You know, what is this going to do to the business? How is it going to increase profitability? How is it going to reduce whatever it is? How is it going to reduce expenses? Those conversations sometimes drum up additional things that you may or may not have thought of. I presume that if you're making a change to your business, you have put a lot of thought into it, and you are sort of thinking about a lot of those ways that things are going to change and what's going to affect it. But having a conversation with your commercial loan officer in order to see what are the options for financing, or what would a bank look for, or even just the general conversation about how this is going to change your business and what you're going to need to be successful in the future.
Right. Really good feedback from all four of you, and I appreciate you letting us shift a little bit. I think the one takeaway I have from this, and maybe our listeners do too, is you looked at this as an opportunity, right? There was a challenge here, there was a problem, but you looked at it as an opportunity. And unfortunately, I still find in conversations and travel through our community that they're still looking at COVID as an excuse. You guys have adjusted. You guys have word of the day, pivoted, right? You guys have pivoted and made a real positive out of this situation. Before we move on, I just want to remind those that have joined us that this is a dynamic group of panelists, and they are eager to have your questions. So if you have some questions, put them in the chat. We will direct them as needed, or as you would like to have them directed, and have the panelists respond. But appreciate our conversation to this point so far. Ron, you talked a little bit about your growth, how you got started. You're now in this nonprofit space. We could talk a little bit about nonprofit, profit if you want, but really, this community, the Central Mass community, the state in general, is rich in nonprofit organizations that are having impact in community. How do you differentiate the work that you do from your competitors in the industry, and how does that work in this space?
Yeah, Bob, I appreciate that question. And I'd like to open with the fact that as a nonprofit, we do need to turn a profit. If we're in the red, we won't be in business. I think in some ways that creates a misnomer. But we're a business as just like everyone else. We just have a different tax code. And so when it comes to doing this work, what I come to learn early on, and the most folks who start nonprofits, in my experience, do it because of passion, the commitment to an issue, really mission driven. And so what I've come to learn as you get into this space, that there is still a competitive market. There are limited dollars for this type of work, and there are certain gatekeepers that provide access to those dollars. And as you come into the space, you really do need to create a separation, as you alluded to, of who you are. I think for us, what we have really done is focused on hiring individuals who have a lived experience and implementing work from a business strategy perspective. I did start this out of passion, but previously to doing this, I was in the private sector in construction for a number of years. And so when I got into the work very early on, I had a keen eye toward data-driven decisions, which I can finally say that we were able to build out a database of our own to really start to track our own metrics. This is one key area I would say for us that begins to differentiate us is in the nonprofit sector, there are a number of grants that can come from federal and or state that have requirements and reporting requirements that may not speak to the actual impact that you want to articulate. And so with us being able to develop our own internal database and CRM, we're now tracking things that those the KPIs that we think are important, reduction in criminal thinking, some of the iterative changes that are along the way, instead of just the high level KPIs of how many people are employed, how many people have education. But we know people are not are products. And so it's not an assembly line where I add this and I move it on to the next one. And so being able to watch those things over a period of time, for us, engagement of 18 to 24 months, begins to allow us to speak intelligently and specifically to the work that we do. And so I think that one key way, those two key areas are ways that we are identifying and then separating ourselves. And I hate to even say that, but it's real from our competitors who may be in this field.
Right. Yeah. Challenging question, and I appreciate the way you addressed it. Let's talk a little bit about some of the mistakes or errors that we've had in the early stages of our business or on a day-to-day basis in our businesses. Let's go to Aaron. Aaron, common mistakes or pitfalls that you have experienced or that you've observed other competitors, entrepreneurs, or business owners that they should just be aware of, things that small businesses should be aware of kind of on the horizon for them as they begin to build and expand their businesses.
Yeah, do you think I've made a few mistakes? Is that why you're asking?
Well, Sean Kelly texted me and he said, ask him about all the mistakes he's made. I'm like, Sean,
Yeah.
I don't think I can go there. But since he's a partner.
Yeah. If he told you to, all right, I guess it's okay. No, honestly, there's a few big ones that we learned from early on. So one of the biggest we actually learned from the first company that we started, Kinetic Batteries, was don't focus on the technology solution, focus on the problem that you're solving. Focus on the problem that you're solving, identify what the solution is that you're actually deploying, and then define the approach that you're using to it. It's really interesting because it's the way that you write all proposals, all scientific journal articles. It's very cut and dry, but often we forget to apply it to business, and we focus too much on, hey, I have this great widget, or I have this great product, or I have this great team that can solve all your problems. But you have to define first what it is that you're actually solving. What is that problem? And then you have to build from there to actually deploy the solution. And then everything is about execution and approach. And most of the time, and what we see and what we've found early in our journey, was getting to 90% is really easy. Getting very close to having actually solved the problem is really easy. It's that last 10% when you have you've built up all this momentum, you know you can solve it, but there's all these other things that are pulling at you, all these other distractions that you say, oh, this is a shiny object over here or there that I could go solve that problem, and there's nobody solving that. But you have to get that last 10%. You have to close the deal. You have to finalize the report. You have to deploy the product, whatever it might be. You have to get that last piece. And honestly, I think if I look at where we have failed in the past and where we've been successful and where some of our peers and colleagues have fallen similarly, it's always that last 10% that differentiates everybody. It's how do you go and just make sure that you actually deliver what your customer or stakeholder needs. So I think that's, again, there's plenty of other ones if we want to dive deep, but early on, those were some of the big ones that I think we found.
I'm happy to chime in on that as well.
Great. Go for it. Excellent.
All
Thank you.
Perfect. So some of the, I could talk about a million mistakes that I've made in the last 12 years of doing this local food aggregation business. But I want to talk about more specifically a mistake that I made very, very recently that is pretty detrimental to my business, that I have literally lost countless hours of sleep over the last few weeks about it. As you know, I soft opened the store on September 23rd to customers in general. And in the midst of me being so focused on getting product on the shelves, making sure that our customers are having a good experience, and not for nothing, the emotional toll of seeing some of our regular customers that we had not seen in at least 6 months because we were under construction at this new location, brand new staff, with the exception of my store manager who's been with me for 3 years, all the things, right? So all the things that you tackle as a small business owner when you first launch your business, and how in some cases the public can be less empathetic to what you should experience when you open a brand new business, and that you should be 100% ready no matter what, and make no mistakes. And if you're not ready, then you should never open, and all of these other things that the general public wishes or indicates to you that you should be ready for. Nonetheless, I quickly noticed within a few days of us opening that all of our pricing was like all over the board. And there were some big challenges with some of our pricing. And as a result, started contacting all of our purveyors and different distributors that we work with. Now, again, I mentioned it, we work with a little over 175 local makers and farms. So it's a lot of work to get into place. But for whatever reason, call it not being open for 6 months and not being aware of the fact that skyrocketing prices had directly impacted us, and the margins and the ways that we were working through products, we kept it the same as when we closed in March. And as a result, I received a 2-star review within the first week and a half of being open on our Google review. And it was specifically about how this person could, the store's cute, as he had mentioned, but that he could go to a regular grocery store and get a bag of chips for $4.99. But at Maker Domain, it was $10 for this bag of chips. And of course, already being aware of the problems that I was facing with the pricing situation and pushing back on our vendors and already starting the implement process, I pretty much was crushed personally at this point, because now I just thought, oh gosh, anybody else that just came in the store in the last 2 weeks now just witnessed this firsthand. And how am I going to recover from that? And how are people's perceptions where you literally get one shot to be amazing out the gate to people, because generally speaking, people are not very forgiving. So if you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, you will see in the next couple of days how I specifically handle that situation. And that basically, when you're faced with something that's a challenge, how you handle it is the most important aspect. And then you hope and pray that everything at that point will just smooth itself out and work as a result. But unfortunately, because I am not a big box grocery store and do not have the buying power of Whole Foods / Amazon or Big Y, I do not have the ability to adjust pricing accordingly. However, there are a lot of other things that we can offer for our customer experience and get as close as possible to that convenience pricing for individuals. So, moral of the story, how you handle something that can be somewhat perceived as detrimental to your business is equally as important as how you handle the good experiences for your customer as well.
Bob, could I take a stab at that one as well?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Thanks, Lynn.
Lynn, when you were talking, this made me think about mistakes, so many, but it's one that is a more personal one that can still haunt me to this day. I'm a visionary leader and I'm an idea factory, and I always think all my ideas are great. And so early on, one of the opportunities that were before us was a chance to market legendary legacies. And I got in touch with a local firm, and they sold me on being able to market our work. We had little funds at that time, and I invested $5,000 in this. And I didn't know anything about click-through rates, any of that stuff, right? And so I got the results back, and I met with a friend of mine who had experience in data analytics, and I showed them what was able to happen with this consultant. And they were like, Ron, you could have got the same results for $250 in a Facebook post. And so going through that was a mistake that I made at that point, and one that can still haunt me to this day. It helps me as an entrepreneur, and it helps me in leading the organization. But the mistake that I have made, and sometimes can still make, is smelling my own fumes and thinking that my idea is the best. And so willing to engage other constituents. And I love what you said, Robert, over at Web5, reaching out and talking to your loan officer and engaging more people. So as I've gotten longer in my business and begin to grow this, willing to have those conversations with with colleagues and other stakeholders about what my ideas are and thinking about before just implementing them. And that mistake is one that I know is still prevalent for me, and appreciate the team I have that helps me talk me back off some of those ideas that aren't always as great as I think they are.
Good. I appreciate all the openness of the three of you in that space. You know, I want to shift a little bit for a couple of minutes over to you guys have referenced this a little bit: culture, team, building team, and just the hiring process overall. You know, I've often said relative to mistakes that resumes should be a list of all the things that we've done wrong and what we've learned from them, as opposed to all of these things that we've accomplished, right? Because I think that we look towards folks who've made mistakes and have learned from those mistakes and how powerful those can be as part of our growth process. But just a general question, you know, what challenges have you encountered? Or what are you looking for in employees when they come to your organizations? How are you looking to build out a team? And what type of challenges have you encountered as part of the hiring process, whether it's initially or over the last year, wherever you've experienced the most challenge? Anyone want to take that first, or Aaron, are you?
Yeah, I can take that.
You guys, actually, Aaron, this is something I think, if I've read correctly and have heard, because of the pivot that you referenced in the beginning, right? And moving, your organization, your company has seen substantial employee growth over the last year and a half, right?
Yeah.
So how has this impacted you? What has your team's approach been to this?
Yeah, so it's been a really interesting journey, right? So we started in 2017, and we just hit 70 employees earlier this year, adding, I think, almost 20 in like the last 4 months. So it's been a pretty steep growth curve for us in this time period. And obviously my job more than anything else is to make sure that we continue to build on the culture that we have inside of Solvus, this idea of kind of family and execution and trust. And so that hiring process is extremely important. And to be honest, in a lot of ways, we've kind of given up on resumes in the traditional sense. They tell you a lot about a person's history, but they don't tell you anything about the person. And for us, the only two things that matter are, and I'll be very general, right? Are you a good person? And can you learn and adapt quickly? If you have those two traits, and again, I'm very poorly defining what a good person is, but if you have those two traits, you're going to be successful almost no matter where you go. But that's the type of people that we hire at Solvus. And so we don't even really hire for explicit roles anymore. We pull in resumes and we find the best possible people out of that list of resumes, and we find the best possible people from that subset. And we say, all right, here's a role that we can slot you into. I'm hiring for an engineer, but you've got this amazing operations background. We'll pull you in because we can always use more good people who can learn quickly, because everything we're doing is new and different. And so if you have lots of experience but no ability to learn, you're going to struggle in a business like ours. So the two big things there for us are, be a good person, can you learn quickly, and how quickly can we filter through the noise of applicants and resumes to get to that person. And that part's really hard. The learning experience we had there was it takes for one role, it takes at least 2 people 6 hours a week to really get the right person in the door. That's what it takes for us to find the right person right now.
Yeah, for us, Bob, and I love what Aaron said there about a good person. I think early on for us, again, being so proud to put forward who we are, our values, and what we stand for. In our hiring process, what I shifted was our interview questions now track to our values more than what skills do you bring. And so one of our core values for us is keeping it 100. I don't do well with gossip. I think that is probably one of the most deleterious processes to any sort of team building and growth. And you'll see on our website that we say we're an entrepreneurial nonprofit. One of the things that led us to do that is that we are constantly learning. As an entrepreneur, that's something that you're going to continue to come against, and feedback is just an opportunity for growth. So in 2 things, what we chose to do was shift our interviewing process to ask questions that really track to our values. So as I get back to that issue of gossip, that's one of our interview questions when we're meeting with someone, and you really can't prepare for it. We're asking you, share a time where in your professional career where you found out someone had gossiped about you, and tell us how you handled it. No follow-up questions. We just want to hear you talk. And so a series of our questions really get to who the character is, what are your values, and will they align with what we're doing? And our values for me are what really are the pillars of culture. And so being able to come back to those is a big piece. The other one is that feedback opportunity. I realized early on that I operate that way. I see feedback as information from a source other than myself, which is supremely valuable because if it's only information from me, I'm living in a fantasy. And so I've had folks on the team where the feedback was given to them and they weren't able to adjust or see it as a learning opportunity. And so really looking at those types of folks that are willing to come in and take the feedback and build a culture of trust so that we can understand that everyone has their best interests at heart so that we can move the entire organization forward is really one of the things that I think is key to us and will be key as we continue to grow.
And I just had a kind of a side comment here as you guys talk about expansion. And I know some of the hiring process is due to attrition. You're hiring people to replace people, but I just kind of wanted to comment on the fact that if you are expanding and you're creating jobs in Massachusetts, it's many of the state-run organizations that work in conjunction with a bank. One of the main fulfillment pieces for their programs are usually the addition of jobs. So if you feel like the path that you're going or the expansion is going to require financing, you know, if you were to call me, I would certainly reach out to, you know, it's mass development, mass growth, and even more commonly SBA. You know, one of the main things that they ask is this financing going to create new jobs? And it does sort of help out with the mission of what they're trying to put the money out there for. So it's just something I kind of wanted to mention, that if what you're doing is adding jobs, it's certainly beneficial to, if you're going to need financing, to reach out to your lender and see what's available, because obviously the bank provides the financing and these companies, they work in conjunction with the bank. So it's sort of we work together in order to provide this financing, and some of these programs can provide some benefits to the business that's looking for this. So just wanted to kind of make that comment.
Yeah, and Robert, while we're with you, let me ask a question. As Peter talked in the beginning, you've been with the bank for 17 years. You've been in lending for quite a while. Kind of a two-part question. One of them is what are the current trends? What have you seen changed over the recent few years, maybe perhaps 6 months? What are the current trends you see for small business lending these days?
Well, I would say one of the main things is, I mean, is it safe to say that we're post-pandemic? Should I say that?
No, don't say it.
Okay, well, we can redact that. So in the recent years going through the pandemic, one of the things that we've seen is there were a lot of grant programs. There were a lot of financing options out there, and a lot of them were due to the pandemic, and you know, the state and the federal government sort of realizing that the businesses needed money to recover. So, you know, you had probably the more common one was SBA, PPP loans, and then EIDL loans for economic injury and disaster. So a lot of those sources of financing were out there, and the requirements were sort of loosened, and there were a lot of grants, and I would say a lot of those things have more recently sort of dried up. So you're back to more conventional forms of financing. That's one of the trends, and I would say the other one is, and it seems to always be, especially with small business, is speed. You know, the speed of which money is to be received. So as a bank, you know, we do realize that at Webster 5 that is something that is a concern of a small business owner, and sometimes it leads small business owner to sort of go down the path of maybe finding an online lender, or as you would say, like a fintech. And I have experienced with some borrowers some regret in trying to get money fast that way, because sometimes the terms aren't always as favorable. You really have to know what you're getting into and take the time to understand it. And it goes further than just having a high interest rate, an exorbitantly high interest rate than than a conventional financial institution would charge. It's also prepayment penalties and other things. So you just want to be very careful when you're trying to go those avenues. And at Webster 5, I would say that we have realized that this is something that is a concern for business owners and something that they want to see improved upon. So we actually have a process for faster loan approvals that, I would say we're going to be rolling out sometime in the next couple of months. And it is focused towards small businesses and small business loan requests. So stay tuned for that. But I would say that's kind of the main trend that you see in small business lending is some of those other sources have kind of gone away. So you're back to conventional. And then also it's always important for a business owner to be able to get money in a reasonable amount of time.
And one of the questions we had, Robert, very good. Thank you for walking that through from your standpoint, and then just a general market overview as well. It's very helpful. One of the questions that came in from our audience goes back to the point about the pivot and when a client reaches out. And the specific question is, at what point in the process should that entrepreneur, should that business reach out to their lender? Should it be early on, later in the process, informal, formal? What is your general recommendation on that?
I mean, it sort of depends on the situation, but I would say that the earlier you can get involved, the better. There are times where if you're sort of too early in the process, the conversation is very high level. If you have more specifics, it is easier for the lender to sort of understand what you're looking to do and how we're able to help. I have to say, I have referred plenty of people over to Clark SBDC, if they're having an idea, or if they're kind of, and it's sort of in its infancy, you guys there have been a great resource for Webster 5 and helping people, devise a business plan and being a consultant for those businesses to sort of understand, maybe there's something they haven't thought of. So I would say early in the process is good, but it may be something where the conversation leads to there's questions that you sort of have to figure out before you come back and we can move forward. But involving, really, for a small business, I think another key is having people around you that are a resource to the business. It's not only a lender and a good lending relationship with your bank, having a good relationship with your CPA accountant, having an attorney. Understanding those services cost money. So I know sometimes it's a cost saving element, but those things are really important for a small business. You have to understand kind of what you're looking to do impacts your business. And I can only answer so many questions. Sometimes it's a question of structure of the business and taxes. And sometimes it's other questions that really legal would need to handle. But for me, I would say, it's the sooner the better, but understanding that if it's too early, there's going to be some open questions that would allow me I can't really move forward until we have some of the answers. So the more thought you put into it before the first conversation, the better, and a business plan even better than that. So. Right.
Thanks. I appreciate the reference to SBDC, and we've got a question relative to that in the chat that I just want to address. As Peter referenced in the start, our mission is to educate and empower clients so they can build profitable businesses. We work with clients pre-venture, so that idea stage, candidly right through the growth of their business, when they're experiencing these pivots in their business, to candidly the end of their business, perhaps when they're looking to retire or get out of the space they're in. There's some stats up there that will say that almost 90% of small business owners retire and just close their businesses down. This is one of the greatest assets that they've built, and because maybe family members aren't interested or kids aren't interested in the next generation. So one of the things we are starting as part of our new strategic plan is to get the word out there that we're working with entrepreneurs to try to align them with these business owners who've built up a great deal of goodwill and done really good work in communities. And let's try to match them as part of the work we do here. I put in there just the SBDC website, and provides a little bit more information on what we do, and certainly would encourage folks on this call or listening to it at a later time to reach out to us and have a conversation. Lynn, were you looking to get in on something? I'm just trying to read a little body language here in the call, or are we doing good right now?
You're great. I'm just
All right.
nodding along to all the things you have to
Okay.
say, specifically mentioning about almost what I refer to as a farming succession plan. When farmers for generations have taken over for their family farm, and now no one else, none of the children or grandchildren want
Right.
to take over that farming career anymore. And that has been a talk of conversation that I've had for a very, very long time with many farmers. And it's I mean, who am I to say, just because I have relationships with them, I'm not the person necessarily that can tell them what they should do or what have you, other than the fact that I watch how hard they work. And it's a really sensitive issue. I remember having a conversation with a farmer, and she was like, "Well, I'm not going to die tomorrow." And I said, "Well, no kidding, but I just want to make sure that you're thinking about this. It's no different than having a living will or having your affairs in order or anything like that. Your business is vital to our community, and your farm is vital to us. And I just hope to work with the next person, and so that it doesn't all of a sudden become developed land, unfortunately, and because farming is so few and far between with items, in particular in Massachusetts.
Yeah, no, appreciate you pointing that out, especially specific to the industry and space that you're in. But I think applicable throughout different industries. So while we're with you, kind of quickly, if it's possible, we've got a question coming in as someone else in the food industry. What resources are you using, if any, to find grants and funding for your business, to keep your business up and active, and to provide more resources? Are there any out there for small business with the mission that you have?
Mission driven is a hard thing that's catered specifically to my business. I can say that there's oftentimes grants through the USDA that are backed through MDAR, which is Mass Department of Agricultural Resources. Some are backed through the USDA, some are not, so some are state funded, and there's opportunities through that. But MDAR, the acronym Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, has been instrumental in helping. Not only are they a great resource because I'm directly connected to the farming community and small makers and so forth, but more so because they have opportunities for that coincide with food resources that are unique to kind of what I do. That's not necessarily for all food businesses. I can say that the city of Worcester in particular does offer a lot of small business grant opportunities, and they're I would say that Peter Dunn at the economic development within the city, it's quite possible that he talks to me more than his own fiance, because I'm constantly hounding him for information or for help or advice or anything. He's been literally someone I've worked with for many, many years, and continuously. He was the one that introduced me to the vacant storefront grant that was available as a gateway city on Main Street when I first opened. Unfortunately, I did not have the opportunity to really partake in a lot of the COVID relief options for Maker Domain, because I had dissolved Let Us Be Local and created a new tax ID and entity as Maker Domain LLC. And so I no longer had tax records to coincide with that. So I had to, with a new business, I had to be very, very, very creative. But economic development, and now when I did my new build out, the North Central Massachusetts Community Development Organization was instrumental in helping me. Otherwise, there's no way that I could have even begun this build out. That's substantially more than it was ever before this new location.
Great, thanks. Thank you very much. Very, very helpful. I want to jump over to ask a question. Maybe we can start with you, Lynn, because you've just gone through it, but feel free, you guys direct the answer. My question is, are there any new or innovative ways for small business owners like yourself to either on your own or by joining forces with peers, achieve best practices in the area of sustainability? Or what have you done as you've grown out your businesses or launched your businesses in the area of sustainability? Any thoughts or where this aligns as it relates to your current strategic plan or thinking, or what you're feeling. I know a lot of times these ideas, especially in larger companies, are starting to come from the employees, the employees that they hire, as this being one of the reasons they're joining an organization. Any thoughts in this space? Aaron,
Well,
you look like you.
I can take a crack there
Yeah,
if you'd
okay.
like.
Okay.
So I can take it from, maybe it's a bit of a different perspective than the actual question, because sustainability is such a broad notion right now. And honestly, it's a bit poorly defined, because when we go back and look in time, a lot of the things that we thought we were doing to be sustainable turns out not so sustainable, right? So one of the things that we focus a lot on is how do we tie sustainability objectives with profitability objectives? Because when you can align the money behind the cause, or align the money behind improvement to environment or human health, whatever it may be, it makes it a much easier sell. When you try to do sustainability for sustainability's sake, it's frequently challenging, right? Because that can be a cost loss factor for you. But when you turn it into something positive, then it's exciting for everybody. So in terms of what we've done, one of the businesses that we've built that Emily Molstad is now running, Vallis Insights, is designed to do exactly that. And the way that even got started was leveraging a lot of different government programs that are available for technologies and problems that are solving technology solutions that are solving big problems to be leveraged to deploy to address those challenges. So National Science Foundation has a lot of programs around that. Department of Energy has a lot of programs around that. USDA has programs. Most of the government agencies have programs that are specifically dedicated to sustainability, inclusiveness, diversity, all of those different elements. And so would definitely encourage folks to look at that lens for the businesses that they're working on, even if you're not necessarily in the traditional kind of like technology space where you think about for those. There's a lot of opportunities inside of those programs to align yourself with partners that can drive that collectively. So thinking about food and agricultural businesses, a lot of the technology startups that are in the food sector, think vertical farming and the like, they have a lot of incentives inside of the government to deploy, because there's projected food shortages down the line as we continue to populate the world. And so having outlets and vehicles for actually deploying those is critical. And so there's a lot of opportunities there coming down the pipeline with the IRA, CHIPS Acts that have come out in the last couple of years that people can take advantage of.
Excellent, thanks. We're running up against the clock. So I want you guys to think succinctly on our final question, parting advice. So, and we're going to start with Ron on this one, because Ron, you have a couple of young entrepreneurs that you're currently working with that have just launched a business. You can share about that business, but here's the question. Here's the rapid fire response to the question. What's one piece of advice you would give these aspiring entrepreneurs who are considering starting that business? One piece of advice.
Yeah, thanks. So what Bob's referencing is I have two sons, one's 11, one's 9, and they're part of an entrepreneurial venture called the Lemonade Bros. It's a LLC, and they've made about $2,500 so far over the last 2 years, and they continue to build out their business. What I would say is, for me, there's a book by Jocko Willink called Extreme Ownership. And so the fact is that as a leader, as a developer, it's always my fault. It's always on me to take full ownership to move things forward in the business. What I would then say, if I could, is to prioritize your problems and take care of them one at a time. Highest priority first. Don't try to do everything at once. As a leader who tries to take on multiple problems, there's always issues, as Aaron alluded to earlier, and we've all talked about on the call here today. But it's someone who tries to take on many problems simultaneously, most likely will fail at all of them. And so prioritizing your problems and addressing them one at a time and moving forward, and take ownership of all your mistakes and learn from it.
Excellent. We're gonna respond alphabetical backwards. Robert Tataro, what do you have for those young small businesses that are coming in?
I would say as I'd mentioned earlier, and kind of Aaron and Lynn had kind of mentioned, there are many programs out there. So even though I had mentioned that post-pandemic, some of those programs are gone, there still are many programs out there that can help, maybe your specific business that you're looking to get into. But I would say more than that, it's just having people around you that you can talk to. And obviously for me, being the banker, I think of CPAs, lawyers, colleagues, but just to understand what you need to do to get into the business. What are the challenges? What are the costs? Sometimes the last thing a business in its infancy needs is a giant loan payment over their head. And maybe at some point it does make sense to receive financing, but it's just sort of, to have a conversation with your loan officer, your banker. Obviously, if you're starting out, you may not have a relationship, but to reach out to the business banking area of your bank and see what they have to say, and see if there's any insight, see if during the pandemic that I was getting a lot of emails for grants and programs, and you never know with the loan officer, they may have seen something. We do get presented to a lot by a lot of the government agencies, and some of these things that you may say may trigger something that the loan officer has heard that might be available for you. So I would say the team of people that you have around you from the onset, and just having a conversation with the bank, just to understand how they would look at what you're looking to do, if it makes sense.
Lynn Shaney.
I would echo that statement as far as having the proper team around you, and how that team can change over the course of your business, but also not just the team of legal and financial professionals. Your physical team that you work with on a daily basis is equally as important as the team that you build of mentors around you, but more so in conjunction with that, know when it's time to pivot or give up or call it quits. That difficult decision of moving from Main Street to Harding Street did not come easily. And you wrestle with your own personal analysis of those things within your business, and how you surround yourself with others for those mentors and those individuals that can talk you through an experience or talk you off a ledge, essentially, and all aspects of your business are equally important, because being an entrepreneur can be a very lonely experience, but it doesn't have to be.
Thanks. Aaron, close us
Build it, break it, test it, measure it, and grow. Just keep doing that cycle over and over again.
Excellent. Excellent. I want to thank all four of you for joining us this morning. I have learned a lot. I've filled my paper with a ton of ideas. Oh, you can't see it in the Zoom thing. I've filled my paper with a ton of thoughts and ideas that we're going to share with our clients and our team here. I especially want to thank Webster 5 for their support. And I want to give a special shout out. We talk about industries and organizations changing and pivoting and readjusting. I want to say that as a member of this community for years and active and involved, I want to thank Worcester Business Journal for being that one constant for all of us, a real strong resource for community, including small business owners. This event today was put on, free of charge for those attendees. They have other events in the community, but I just want to thank them for their involvement in the growth of Central Massachusetts, as well as Worcester, and how they've been able to pivot in a very challenging industry, the media landscape. So I want to thank them for hosting this today. Again, as Peter mentioned in the beginning, everyone will be receiving an email with the link of today's webcast. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day, and have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you, everybody.